So, good afternoon. My name is Jack Hanagriff, and I was formerly with the City of Houston. So, today we're going to talk about the smart railroad crossing project you heard a little bit about earlier today. 15 years of my 39 years with the City of Houston. I just retired, but Jesse said, yeah, that lasted about 3 days, and he brought me back. So, he called me one day because of my 15 years with the City of Houston, of my 39 years with the City of Houston, 15 years of those, I was the city's railroad liaison. So apparently, I was a train psychologist or something. I don't know. I dealt with trains. I dealt with the railroads. And Jesse called me up and said, hey, can a camera detect a stop train? We got a lot of stop train problems here, which we call a block crossing or stop train event. And I said, sure it can. And then I immediately called Maurice and I said, hey, can a camera detect a stop train?
Good morning. Maurice Singleton here with Global Solutions. And obviously my response was yes, but we should put this in a pilot environment where we can actually test and see whether or not the cameras and how they perform in actually detecting a train, right? The last thing you want to do is put technology out there only to find out after you've mounted cameras, got infrastructure in place, that it doesn't do exactly what you intended it to do.
So let me give you a little background of a stop train event. In the U.S., the Federal Railroad Administration, which is the governing body of railroads, receives about 18,000 block crossing events in the nation, 18,000 a year. The state of Texas sees about 2,500 of those. And I'll give you a clue where you think the bulk of those are. Those are in the city of Houston. Over half is in the city of Houston. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, well, the city of Houston is 600 square miles and about 1,000 railroad crossings. So sure, they're going to have a stop train event, right? However, what we found was about 1,600 of those complaints were in a 16 square mile city of Houston, a very small piece of Houston with about 115 crossings is carrying basically the city of Houston stop train event.
So that's where the technology really comes into play. We certainly understand and from technology out in the real world, cameras in particular, how they are able to do certain things, see certain things, basically pointed and focused on. But the other aspect of cameras is that they've become a lot smarter over the years through onboard analytics and having the capability to detect certain behaviors rather than you having to sit there and stare at them all day long waiting for something to happen.
So as part of this pilot, we had to call in a lot of partners. And we picked technology partners that are already established with the city of Houston. And they provided the city of Houston at no cost for about $80,000 worth of equipment. We're talking cameras, we're talking AI. You know, when everybody comes to me and says, hey, can you put a camera here? Yes, a lot that goes with it. There's power. Where are you gonna mount them? So the railroad was not that cooperative about letting us have access to property. So we had to use utility poles. We had to use city right away. So we didn't have the most optimum areas to put the technology. So there was a tremendous learning curve. But we worked on this project for over 2 to 3 years, developing the technology, and we got pretty decent results.
Yeah, so putting the camera technology out in a pilot environment, being able to then look at how it's performing, what types of detection we're able to actually get the onboard analytics, we discovered a number of different things. Thing number one is that while AI is certainly advanced over the years, it's gotten a lot better in terms of its capability, it didn't perform or do as well in terms of detecting specifically a train, right? There's uniqueness around how trains are built, how they move, things of that nature. So one of the things that we actually paid close attention to based on the requirements that were set is how that technology was performing performing against the requirements that were established. We also discovered that having cameras out in those particular locations, the railroad crossings, did reveal some other behaviors that weren't necessarily immediately a focus of attention, right? And so those behaviors, such as people wandering onto the track, cars getting in the way of the crossing, things of that nature, the cameras from a visual verification standpoint provided that ability to now see that type of behavior just as important as the original intent, right, of detecting a train. So now we could also look to focus some attention on that aspect. And so putting that now into a R&D phase allowed us to then look at other types of technology that could service the actual train detection, like LiDAR, like audio sensor technology that could listen to the train signals and detect when a train is coming. So putting things in the R&D environment was the next step of the project.
So we're going to take you through a few slides and kind of show you how all this ties together. So this is the focus area. It's about 16 square miles. It has about 115 of the railroad crossing. Out of the 1,000 that are in the city of Houston, about 115 are in this area. The red boxes, those are fire stations. And you can see one in particular is kind of in a triangle, the bottom left fire station. Station 18 is number 2 in the city in receiving delays by train. And these are 10 to 15 minute delays. We're also seeing through this technology, because, there's the complaints, 1,500 or so complaints a year in this area. It's perception, it's how people are reporting. So we needed good data. We needed this data to tell us, what was really occurring. The Houston Fire Department was also citywide stating that they were delayed by a train 100 times a month. So we needed to put the technology to the test to see what the data results were. And we were seeing 14-hour blockages. And we're not talking about one crossing. A train is a mile long. It takes 6, 7, 8 crossings for a mile long for 14 hours, 11 hours, 10 hours. So there was a lot of things we were seeing with this technology. Next slide.
So here's the actual location where we put the technology, and the thing to focus on is this is using object traction. So the camera view is actually focused on the track, but also the bounding box is focused on the CVS sign that's actually going to provide detection for when the train is detected and alerted on. The other aspect is that there's also audible sensor technology at this location as well. So we're actually able to test and validate 2 types of technology at one location, and also leverage the fact that there's a single camera there that's providing visual verification for both types of detection. So getting the ability to determine and detect a train based on camera analytics, and also verification through the camera, and then an additional point of having detection from the audio sensor along with video verification again from the camera. At this location, we're actually using LiDAR technology, laser technology, to detect the presence of a train. The LiDAR sensor actually uses the camera to focus the laser beam across the track, and therefore configure zones that could also determine the direction of the train, whether or not the train is stopped on the track, and any other anomalies that might be associated with that location. The camera also, again, provides visual verification that indeed a train was detected, and so someone receiving that notification could therefore go look at that video and say, yep, indeed that was a train that was detected, validate the alert, and again, prove that the technology is doing exactly what it's designed to do.
So on the playback, it doesn't show a lot of the technology working in the background, but in the live theater, the laser that you saw, the red line on the screen, will actually do measurements around the train. Cameras were having a difficult time determining, is this a train? What is this? Is it a truck? So we needed that additional support, if you will, in the technology to actually identify a train because some of the technology was getting confused. We also had to figure out a way of getting this information to our first responders because, again, 100 delays a month. They cannot turn a pumper on a dime. Once they commit, sometimes they get trapped because you just can't back out. I know people that have been stuck in these crossings for 45 minutes to an hour because they can't get out once they commit to these neighborhoods. So we wanted to get the technology to them, even though it was in pilot form, it was in research and development, but it was a good data that we could get right into that fire station that's in the middle of what we call the train triangle. Because at times, all three sides of their fire station have been disrupted by a train and they couldn't get out. 3 different trains, 3 different crossings. So we worked with 3 different companies called Trainfo, Haystacks. So Trainfo is the audible sensor detection. And then Haystacks is like a mapping service that we could give to the fire department so they know exactly where these stopped trains are. Also, they can validate with the camera. The cameras became real important. I don't know if you noticed, kind of cutting through the neighborhood and stuff because they're playing beat the train. They see the gates go down, make an immediate left turn, and they can do what we call creative driving through these people's neighborhoods. Hazmat trucks try to cut through people's neighborhoods. So it creates a lot of creative driving on top of the metro service and fire department trying to get through. And you're cut off from other neighborhoods is what's happening. So we were able, through this visual validation, to see other activities going on. And then we used the power, put it in the hands, physically put technology in the hands of the fire department. Because they still work with crayons and marker boards and stuff like that. So having this technology in their hands gives them real-time information. Do I go left or do I go right before they even leave the station? Next slide. So this is kind of an example of the audio detection. 2 activities going on there is audio detection. There's also this object subtraction. But the audio detection only reacts to the bells on the gate. You know, the ding, ding, ding thing, the alarm or the pedestrian bell on the gates. It listens for the bell, then it listens for the engine of the train, and then it tries to determine what the train is doing. But we still need that visual validation because it's very accurate in telling me that the gates are down and the crossing's active, and we're assuming there's a train on there because that's typically what activates it, but it could also be a maintenance vehicle. Or we'll get things that go on for hours, and we're like, what is this train doing? We found an 11-hour blockage that basically the railroad lost the train because they didn't even know it was there. And we had to show them through the video, here's your train. And if we didn't have that, the sensor detected it right away. But I had no idea what was there for 11 hours. And the railroad's telling me there's nothing there. And I'm like, well, here's 3 pictures. So
That's actually, sorry to interrupt you, Jack, but that's another important element of this project in terms of being able to collect that data, analyze that data, and determine things such as how long has that train been occupying or blocking that particular crossing, right? Whether it's moving or whether it's stopped. Again, that crossing is being blocked. So being able to perform a set of data analysis and bring out to the forefront things of that nature that could help you now go back and determine how can you improve the ability to clear that crossing or not have it as blocked as often or frequently as it's being blocked, which also creates a public safety hazard. First responders can't get to and from where they need to go in emergency. And so that's another element that I just wanted to point out.
So Trainfo hears it. I'm going to do the next slide. Trainfo hears it, detects it, and sends a signal to their mapping service, which changes the icon red. Red means you can't use this crossing. We take that data and pass it on to some of the platforms or the GIS platforms that the city uses This one being haystacks, which is the next slide. And so the fire department sees a stop sign. They don't have to sit there and try to interpret the data or anything like that. They say, oh, stop means I can't use this. So what TrainFo sees, they transmit to their mapping service, and then we're able to get, using tablets, we're able to get that information into their actual vehicles, their ladder trucks, their ambulances, their pumpers. On the next slide, the fire station sees all. So we have a big screen in the fire station, so they know before they leave, do I go left or right? And you can see it took to bring them this information. These are a lot of us working together for a couple of years. So, but what we also discovered was we were still seeing ambulances stop by a train, and what had happened is when they left the station, the cameras were clear. But by the time it took them 2 minutes to get down there, a train rolled up. So that's why the map is also important. Having that information readily available in their fire trucks is very important. Go over to the next one. So this is kind of a deliverable we discovered. We have 2 different crossings. The same train will block both of these crossings. One crossing has an audible signal, which is on sensor on the left. The other one has a camera on the right. So when that audible sensor trips, I know there's activity on the crossing, but I'm not necessarily what's going on. This was like a 3-hour stoppage. And I was able to get in the camera at the next crossing. They're doing exactly what we asked them to do. Down the street where that white van is, that's what we call a critical crossing. That's important to the fire department, and we're asking the trains to stay off certain crossings. They can't stay off all 1,000 crossings at the same time. So we're picking and choosing what crossings we ask them to stay off of. So the train is doing exactly what they're saying, but it's give and take. If they're not stopping on one crossing, they're blocking another. But again, that's important to the fire department. And they were there for 3 hours. I saw the guys on the camera. They're sitting on the side of their train with their igloo ice chest having lunch. But they're doing exactly what we asked them to do. And we would not know what was happening if we just had one sensor or one piece of equipment out there, because train operations is very complex. And a lot of things change, and it's nice to be able to validate what's going on. And we also picked up other things. It's crossings where 1 in 5 cars stops on the tracks. I have people playing beat the trains. I have people race the gates, drive around the gates. So all that creates a safety issue as part of this project. Any questions? Suggestions? We're at it.